Hi. On behalf of Bayerische Staatsballett, I would like to welcome you to this audio introduction. My name is Christoph Gaiser, and as your host for the next 20 minutes or so, I would like to dig a little deeper and to enhance your experience once you come watch one of our La Sylphide shows. I would like to invite you to imagine a rural community around 200 years ago. Children are being born and baptized, the dead are being buried, and people get married. Who marries whom is usually determined by outside forces. Love marriages are not the rule, rather the exception. It is often customary for distant relatives to marry, for example, cousins. In such a rural community, there are usually a few outsiders. It is not uncommon to find an older, impoverished, and childless woman who has certain abilities. She may be a healer, for example, or she may be able to predict the future from the cards or the lines on the palm of the hand. Or she may be able to cast spells on an unpopular person. Such a woman is needed, at least from time to time. But, as a rule, people keep their distance from her, perhaps even treating her with contempt. But then they use her services again and again, more or less secretly. In the plot of the ballet La Sylphide, it is precisely such a rural community that is in the focus. The village is located in Scotland, as you will be seeing from the costumes. Tartan patterns feature prominently in the first act. And it's about a wedding. We see the wedding preparations. There's a young farmer named James. He is supposed to marry his cousin, named Effie. There is only one problem. Our young groom has visions. A female figure appears to him in his sleep, dressed in white, seemingly weightless. At first, this does not seem to worry the young man. Scotland is known for all kinds of spirits, ghosts, and goblins, flitting around in the great outdoors, but also in people's homes. James has probably heard that there are air spirits, friendly spirits that live in the forest, in the treetops. They're called sylphs or sylphides. And now, something remarkable happens. James realizes that the sylphide appears to him not only in his twilight sleep, but also in broad daylight. And that unsettles him, because he realizes that he is becoming more and more fascinated by the female air spirit. But this also means that he can no longer be completely honest with his fiancée. Something has come between him and Effie, and at the worst possible moment, just a few hours before the wedding. The drama of the situation becomes palpable when, along with a crowd of young female well-wishers, the village outsider suddenly bursts in. Her name is Madge. James wants her out of the house. Her appearance is a bad omen for him. But the young women present ask Madge to predict who will be the next to marry. And so Madge stays. Madge announces something scandalous. She tells Effie that she loves James more than he loves her. And when James' best friend Gurn, who is not so secretly in love with Effie, rushes in, Madge tells the bride that Gurn is the one who truly loves her. Of course, James cannot tolerate this, and he chases Madge out of the house. Everyone throws themselves into the wedding preparations. There is singing and dancing, but James simply cannot get the Sylphide out of his head. She becomes more and more real, more and more physical for him. And when she finally snatches the engagement ring from him, James has made up his mind. He will escape this wedding by running away. And so he runs away, together with the Sylphide. And so the first act of this ballet ends with another scandal. The bride has been left at the altar, and the groom has disappeared into thin air. In the second act, we see James and the Sylphide walking through the forest, where the Sylphide and her companions live. But even in the wild, not all problems are solved. It's not a wonderland like Konfiturenburg Castle in the Nutcracker, 60 years later, where almond milk and lemonade flow from the fountains. The forest has something both calming and disturbing about it. James finds the Sylphide's habitat appealing, but he also can't forget his jilted fiancée. James longs for a solution. He wants to commit himself fully to one partner, and he also wants her all to himself. And just at that moment, Madge reappears in the forest, where she also lives, and she makes James a promise. With a scarf that she has enchanted, James will be able to bind the Sylphide tightly to him. She will be his subject. James takes the scarf without asking what the catch might be. But of course, there is a catch. When James tries to catch the Sylphide with the scarf, she dies. What a miserable end to her life. James realizes that he's risked and lost everything. The Sylphide is dead, and in the distance, James can see the wedding procession, reuniting Effie and Gurn, who has always loved her. And the old Madge triumphs. One could say, what an unhappy end. There is a dead Sylphide, a despairing James, and a humiliated Effie, who can save face by marrying Gurn and thus avoiding ending up as an old maid. But Gurn is only second choice for her. Gurn, on the other hand, is the big winner. And if we now ask ourselves, is Madge truly the embodiment of evil, then we have to put things into perspective. Madge and the Sylphide are never seen together on stage. Only the one or the other appears. We may suspect that the two are connected in some way. And anyway, this story cannot be addressed with razor-sharp logic. There are contradictions, there are ambiguities. This story was first told in 1832. It is typical of the Romantic era. Typical contrasts in the narratives of that time are day and night, nature and city, beauty and ugliness, the human and the non-human. It is a time in which psychoanalysis did not yet exist, but in which artists were already interested in the stirrings of the human soul, especially in its darker sides. When stories of ghosts and spirits, of uncanny figures are the norm, then this can sometimes be quite real. But it can also be an image of what goes on inside us. La Sylphide is a romantic ballet, the first significant full-length romantic ballet, and a model for other ballets that followed and that have shaped our image of ballet to date. For example, Giselle from the 1840s, with its contrast between the vibrant life of a wine-growing village and a desolate forest where unmarried women wreak havoc at night as the undead. Or Swan Lake from the 1870s, where the magician Rotbart forces young women into the form of swans. Or Sleeping Beauty from the 1890s, where the wicked fairy Carabosse causes a young 16-year-old girl and an entire court to sink into a 100-year sleep. All these pieces are about thwarted or at least temporarily prevented weddings. And the confrontation between human and non-human beings increasingly emerges as the driving force of the plot. Puppets and nutcrackers come to life. There's something playful, something cute in it, but also something threatening. And well into the 20th century, the ballet stage was populated by non-human figures or figures who transcend the human. Think of the ballets The Firebird or Petrushka, or think of the ballets like The Wooden Prince, The Miraculous Mandarin, or The Demon. It wasn't until the late 1950s that ballet grew wary of fairies, witches and wizards, nutcrackers and wooden puppets. Now, the desire was to depict conflicts that arise and are negotiated exclusively between humans. John Cranko was a pioneer in this, drawing on world literature and creating his masterpieces Romeo and Juliet, Onegin, and The Taming of the Shrew, based on the works of Shakespeare and Pushkin. Others, such as Yuri Vamos and John Neumeier, followed him down this path. La Sylphide was first staged in Paris in 1832. The piece was created by the Italian Filippo Taglioni, whose daughter Maria Taglioni was one of the most sought-after ballerinas of the time. Taglioni had already caused a sensation in Paris with a danced interlude to Meyerbeer's opera Robert le Diable. This danced interlude is being considered the nucleus of romantic ballet. La Sylphide, though, is the first full-length romantic ballet. It is also the first full-length ballet in which point dancing is consistently used and consistently placed at the service of the plot. In this case, point dancing serves to symbolize the Sylphide's independence from gravity. Although the ballet was a great success and quickly performed throughout Europe and North America, it fell into obscurity after a few decades. Other pieces, new pieces followed, and even in the ballet world, people like to follow the latest fashions. La Sylphide survived in only one place, in Copenhagen. Shortly after the Paris premiere, the Danish choreographer August Bournonville created his own version, with new choreography and new music, which he commissioned Herman Löwenskjöld to write. The reason was a copyright issue. Even then, one couldn't simply borrow a successful production from another theater, so one simply created something new that was very similar, yet a little different. Bournonville's version was consistently danced in Copenhagen, and from there spread throughout the Western world again. This version was also performed in Munich at the end of the 1970s by the Bavarian State Opera Ballet. In 1946, Victor Gzowski created a new version of La Sylphide in Paris that actually retained the music from the original version. Nevertheless, there was a regret that this original version from 1832 was lost. And so, it was at the end of the 1960s that the French choreographer Pierre Lacotte decided to attempt a reconstruction of the original version. Lacotte was familiar with both versions of La Sylphide that were common at the time. He had seen Gzowski's version in Paris, and he had even danced in Bournonville's version. After an operation on his back, he didn't have much to do, so he began researching, and he realized that there was enough material available to make the project a success. Mainly from 19th century sheet music, from detailed newspaper reports, and from historical illustrations, Lacotte gained a clear picture of what the original 1832 version must have looked like. Only in a few places there were gaps that needed to be filled with own ideas and own step material. And sometimes, even at an advanced stage of the work, Lacotte was able to make exciting discoveries. For example, when he met with collectors of ballet memorabilia, or when he visited an archive in a distant location. In an interview, Lacotte recounted the following.
In the second act, much was familiar to me, except for the appearance of Marie Taglioni herself as the Sylphide. I looked at the sets and thought, well, it's strange, but there's a rock here, and I think she must have gone in there. Well, when I was in St. Petersburg, the director said he would open the archives to show me everything he had of La Sylphide. He opened the book, and the Sylphide's entrance in Act 2 was exactly as I had imagined it. You have no idea how exciting something like this is. It's strange, but it's true.
The result of Lacotte's efforts was shown on French television on New Year's Day 1972, a ballet production in a television studio. The response was so great that a stage version was shown at the Paris Opera House just 6 months later. And so, today, ballet companies around the world have the choice of dancing either Bournonville's shorter version or the full-length, more French-style original version. That original version has been on show again in Munich since November 2024, offering us the opportunity to experience where the magic of the Romantic ballet first began. We have reached the end of our audio introduction. I hope I was able to shed some light on our production of La Sylphide. Thank you for your time, and feel free to tune in again for another audio introduction. My name is Christoph Gaiser. Thank you very much for listening.